Okay, good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to our virtual design review panel meeting. Today on our agenda, we have a development proposal for 92 to 100 John Street North and 61 through 81 Wilson Street in Hamilton. I am Edward Winter, an urban designer at the City of Hamilton, and hosting this meeting. David Cluzio will chair the meeting. In addition to our panel members, we have the applicant team, city staff, members of the public, and media observing today. Members of the public are welcome here, but reminded there's no comments or questions from the public at the design review panel. This meeting is being recorded and will be uploaded to the City of Hamilton's DRP webpage. Lastly, a reminder to panelists, please keep the microphones muted when not speaking. Thank you everyone for attending our design review panel. David, please begin the meeting when you're ready.
Okay, I'm just waiting for the script to show up here. Okay. Thank you. Good afternoon and welcome. Edward, can you please confirm the session is being recorded?
Yes, I confirm.
And are there any changes to the agenda today?
No changes. As the last couple of weeks, I'll be making a short presentation, and we have planner Elena Baldassarda available for any policy questions.
And I'm assuming by silence that there are no conflicts with any of the panelist members with this project before us. So on the agenda today is the review of 92 to 100 John Street North and 61 to 81 Wilson Street. The lead planner on the file is Elena Baldassarra, who was available to answer any policy questions, and Edward Winter will make a brief presentation. Good afternoon, Edward. We are ready for your presentation. Please keep the presentation under 5 minutes.
Thank you. All right. Okay, so the proposal is for a 31-story mixed-use tower development with 5-story podium for a total of 383 residential units and a 386 square meter commercial unit at grade. There are planned 143 parking spaces to complement. In the existing surrounding area, there is existing low-density residential buildings and converted industrial and institutional buildings to the north and east. There are conditionally approved mixed-use multiple dwelling proposal to the west of the site across John Street North. And there is a surface parking lot to the southwest corner of the intersection. There's a site plan control application for a proposed 2-tower, both 30 stories, mixed-use proposal to the south. Okay, this is the downtown mixed-use area. Here, I'll go back. This is the downtown mixed-use area. It's an urban growth center. It's part of the downtown secondary plan area. Some of the policies that are important in this project are respecting of design and heritage, creating quality residential neighborhoods, enhancing streets and public spaces, mobility and complete streets, sustainable and resilient downtown, transition and scale, and public realm. This is the corner of John and Wilson, looking at the site from the southwest. Looking south from the northwest, looking down John Street. Conceptual site plan shows the tower at the corner with the podium wrapping along John and Wilson Street. Here we have the subject lands noted within our downtown secondary plan land use map, known as downtown residential, across the street from downtown mixed use. And secondary plan maximum building heights, we're looking at high rise 2. Okay, our questions for discussion today are, does the proposal complement surroundings through building design and placement and the provision of pedestrian amenities, promoting a vibrant streetscape and sidewalk along both John Street North and Wilson Street? Does the proposal make a sensitive transition in height to the surrounding built environment? Does the proposal exercise sensitivity to the heritage building to the north? And does the proposal include design considerations to reduce wind impact and create year-round pleasant and usable spaces at ground level and podium terraces? And we note that there's multiple towers being considered in the immediate area at various stages of municipal approvals. That's my presentation. I'll hand it back to you.
Thank you very much. We're ready for the consultant to provide additional information. Please keep your presentation to under 10 minutes as well.
Okay, thank you, everybody. My name is Sujin Chung. I'm the architect from Studio JCI. Perhaps, David, if you don't mind, I'd like to just do a quick round of introductions for our team.
Go ahead.
So we have Franz and Ryan from AJ Clark. They are the planners on our file. We have Nicholas from GBCA, who is the heritage consultant. We have Graham from Adesso, who's our urban and landscape design. And last but not least, Ryan Miller, who is the client representative from Emblem. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. And if you can all please confirm that you can see that.
It's visible.
Okay, yeah. Thank you. Okay, so we're grateful for this opportunity to present this proposal to the DRP. This DRP submission contains 3 parts: site, design, and appendix. However, for purposes of this presentation, we will be focusing on site and design, and if required, we can use the appendix to address any questions the panel may have. The subject site is located at the combined land assembly of 92 to 100 John Street North and 75 to 81 Wilson. For purposes of this presentation, I'm going to refer to the site as 92 John Street. In this presentation, I will identify the existing site and planning principles, describe the cultural heritage context of the site, outline the project narrative and approach to the design of this development, illustrate the design evolution of this building, and describe the architectural vision and proposed materials palette. Since the existing context has already been described, I will bypass this slide. And as mentioned previously, here are 2 maps that define the land use and heights for our proposed site. The development application in the surrounding area includes 5 applications: 41 Wilson Street, 80 John Street North, 71 Rebecca, 77 James Street North, and 16 Cannon Street East. All of the projects except 16 Cannon Street are located in the high-rise 2 zones of the downtown Hamilton secondary plan. Shown on this image is our current proposal in context with other development applications in the area. A cultural heritage impact assessment is included in our DRP submission. It concludes that the mitigating strategies of our proposal balances the demands for intensification with those of heritage preservation. A quick review of the existing structures. Located at the corner of the site is the Gary Proctor Building. This is a standalone 3-story commercial building constructed late 1950s, early 1960s. The west facade is comprised of a modest curtain wall system, and the south facade is clad in a combination of glazed and matte white brick. Directly south of the site is 80 John Street North, currently a surface parking lot with the planning application filed for 2 30-story towers. To the west of the site, 1 block away at the northeast corner of Houston and Wilson, is the Trinity Lutheran Church. To the north is 108 John Street North, a 3-story commercial office building, which is neither registered nor designated, followed by the Stewart Memorial Church, which is designated under the Cultural Heritage Resources map. To the east of the site are 85, 87, and 91 Wilson Street. The latter 2 properties are considered registered non-designated under the Cultural Heritage Resources map. Looking at the site as a whole, we have the same owner developing both the northwest and the northeast corners of Wilson and John. This opened up a narrative for us that this can be more than just a singular development. There's an opportunity to define a gateway into the city downtown core, bookends, if you will, the intersection of Wilson and John. Our starting point is, can we create a sense of place as an art or urban district? Is there any consideration for international art districts or the local art scene to become the narrative of our design approach? What do all art districts have in common? They have specialized or artistic elements, little jewels, moments, or nodes that engage the public and create a sense of place, artistry, and identity. And they activate the public realm. We took some time to understand the local Hamilton art scene. There are various artists to note, along with art crawls that Hamilton holds monthly and super crawls on an annual basis. This tells us this is a city whose art scene is growing. Our approach to this project is threefold. Bookending the corners provides a unique opportunity to create a sense of place, creating a strong podium expression, and expressing the tower as a collection of urban scaled volumes. The process in getting to this DRP presentation involved a few meetings with city staff. Due diligence meeting prior to purchasing the land on April 12, 2022 with Planning and Urban Design. The formal consultation meeting held November 16, 2022, and the post-formal consultation meeting with Planning and Urban Design held on December 21, 2022. Throughout the course of these meetings, we've received feedback from city staff. The next few slides will illustrate the initial starting point and how we've developed the design to address staff comments. The first evolution I'd like to discuss is the site plan. At due diligence, the proposal was a 0 lot line setback all around for a podium for 4 stories. City feedback was to provide step down at the northeast corner. Note that this site plan was based on an extended land assembly to include 81 Wilson. The revision at the formal consultation provided a 3.9 meter setback at the east property line. This was predominantly due to an existing building encroachment and a step down at the northeast corner comprising of a 2-story plus mezzanine massing at the corner transitioning to a 5-story. City comments were still to improve the setback at the northeast corner. Note that this site plan did not include 81 Wilson. The revised DRP, we've proposed a 6-meter setback at the rear plus a 1.5 meter setback at the east property line. A 3-story built form at the northeast corner transitions to 8 stories. Note the client has elected to purchase 81 Wilson as part of this development proposal's land assembly. Next is the podium plan evolution. Given the poor soil quality for this area of Hamilton and the high water table, there is concern that excavation could draw in contaminants from off-site sources into the groundwater and onto the site. As a result, the owner is electing to provide all parking above grade. When this was proposed for levels 2 to 4 at the initial due diligence meeting, staff did not flag any major concerns with the idea of having parking in the podium, only to consider a high-level material treatment to screen the parking. They wanted to ensure there would be no blank walls. At formal consultation, levels 2 to 5 were fully planned for parking use. Same city comment regarding the podium facade. Revised for this DRP, we've provided a much more efficient parking layout located at the northern portion of the building, allowing the southern portion to be used for residential uses. This offers huge improvement on the podium elevations, providing residential uses facing Wilson and wrapping the corner to face John Street. The next design evolution to review is the northeast corner setbacks and stepbacks in further detail. In this case, given that this is a corner site, we have elected to consider the John Street face as the front lot line. However, a traditional 7.5 meter rear yard setback would not be appropriate on Wilson. It would leave too wide a gap along a major artery of the city. The four-story podium of the due diligence option is first shown. At formal consultation, this massing was pushed back at 3 locations. A 3.9 meter east yard setback, and 2 3.9 meter stepbacks at the northeast corner at the 4th story. Revised for this DRP, we are now showing the 6 meter rear yard setback from the north inset corner lot line, a 1.5 meter setback from the east property line for levels 1 to 5, above which an 8.1 meter setback for the mid-rise form. At the northeast corner, there will be a 3-story volume, followed by a 3.7 meter step back for levels 4 to 7. The last design evolution I will focus on is massing. At due diligence, the proposed 4-story podium was 16 meters high, levels 5 and 6 set back 3 meters from the street lot line, followed by a single tower extrusion at the corner. The east wall was 6 stories facing the adjacent buildings with no transition to the adjacent context. At formal consultation, there was a 5-story podium that was 16.2 meters high, level 6 and 7 setback 8 meters from the street line, and a single tower extrusion at the corner. The east wall was a 6-plus mezzanine structure facing adjacent buildings. City feedback was to reduce podium heights to match zoning, as well as being sensitive to the 2 to 3-story existing context. For this DRP, we are proposing a 5-story podium 16 meters high. A mid-rise form introduced on the east side could transition from the low-rise podium level to the tower. This provides articulation of massing to be a collection of volumes that ease the transition from low density to high density. The east wall has improved to be 5 stories facing the adjacent buildings, plus additional articulation on this facade instead of being a large blank wall. Next,
Okay,
I'll speak.
so you're at 10 minutes, just a heads up. I hope you're wrapping up shortly.
Yes, I will be wrapping up in just 2 more minutes. Next, I'll speak about the design, the architectural vision. The additional land assembly of 81 Wilson provides a unique opportunity to reimagine an appropriate built form for the site. With the combined lot frontage now as 65 meters, a mid-rise massing is introduced, providing an appropriate transition from the easterly existing lots to the tower. In order to address comments of lowering the podium to contextualize with the adjacent buildings, a 5-story, 16-meter tall podium expression that wraps both Wilson and John Street is proposed. This is substantially lower than the 22-meter podium height allowable on Wilson. It is important to ensure there's a careful balance of being mindful of the existing context and the possibility of future development east of the site. The remainder of the block, should it be developed, is not big enough for a tower form. It would be a mid-rise, presumably 3 to 5-story podium and a total of 8 to 10 stories. This massing proposal is sensitive to both the existing and potential future contexts. The 14-story mid-rise portion is set back 8.1 meters from the eastern property line, while the tower is set back 13.6 from the eastern property line, both of which exceed typical setbacks for mid-rise and tower design guidelines. The ground floor area facing Wilson is comprised of retail and residential entries. Levels 2 to 5 contain residential units facing Wilson and wrapping the corner onto John Street North. The tower is broken up into 3 sections, the major vertical element at the corner, the mid-rise segment at the east, and a smaller tower situated on top. The treatment and application of balconies vary with each section. The taller balcony expression and the extension of the mechanical penthouse are proposed to visually reinforce the corner. The mid-rise section introduces a rationalized grid pattern, mediating a visual transition from the solid masonry base to the window wall tower above. The smaller tower proposes a thinner and more horizontal balcony expression, differentiating this volume from the boldness of the corner. In order to animate the pedestrian route, the ground floor is set back an additional 3 meters from the extent of the property line. This allows for porosity between the retail and residential amenities behind with the streetscape. The podium corner is expressed by a 3-story reduced volume with a vertical window expression. This volume and articulation commemorates the Gary Proctor building, being similarly scaled in height and reinforcing a vertical window expression. This volume is further emphasized by elevating 6 meters, which also provides clear height for the strata conveyance required by the city with a daylight triangle at the corner, eliminating any chamfers to the building. Looking at the Wilson elevation, the first 3 stories at the eastern portion of Wilson are broken up into 2 smaller brick masses to carry the cadence of the existing single-family house form buildings. The upper levels are a change in material to glazing and metal paneling to lighten the perception of these levels and reinforce the strong masonry base that is in line with the adjacent building's firewall. We propose this masonry base to be a tumbled white brick called Wyndham, carefully trimmed with black metal paneling. While this color is different from the standard reds, browns, and burgundies found in the area, the proposed new color aims to connect with the existing Gary Proctor building, adding both a contemporary and distinguishable touch to the streetscape while being consistent in materiality and coloration of muted earthy tones. The John Street North elevation is divided into 3 volumes. The units facing Wilson wrap the corner and then transition to the parking garage for the northern 2 bays. This elevation brings us back to our initial design concept of how to create an art district. What would otherwise be considered a dead back of house back of house elevation due to the parking programming behind it, we propose to use this as an opportunity to provide animation at grade to activate the public realm, topped with carefully composed upper volumes. At ground level, a majority behind the brick base is parking and loading. In order to animate this portion of the street, we are proposing a series of showcases, 5 feet deep storefront glazing. This provides a small sliver of leasable commercial area, either for local restaurants or pop-up shops to provide a window display, or in collaboration with local artists or the Art Gallery of Hamilton, an opportunity to display art. Perhaps it's something that can be incorporated into the art crawl or super crawl.
I hope that's about it. I think you've exceeded the time by 5 minutes, so I'm going to have to ask you to. We'll have to ask questions on clarifications. Okay.
Okay, thank you.
I'm going to turn it over to our panelists to ask questions. Joey, first on the list.
Thanks, David. I just have one question, and it's heritage related. I'm wondering if there is a document and salvage report that was produced for the buildings proposed to be removed.
I can answer that. Hi, Joey. We have a documentation and salvage report underway, and that's something we can circulate as soon as possible. It's documenting the materials that are also explored in the CHIA.
Okay. Are you going to be what's proposed right now? Do you know? Like, are you salvaging the mid-century, the Proctor building materials? Are they forming part of a commemoration piece? Is that developed yet, or is it still being worked on?
It's still being developed.
Okay. Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome. And if you have any input on that, by all means, we'll gladly listen to you. Okay.
Okay. Appreciate that.
Jennifer Mallard.
Thanks, David. I have a two-part question. One for the planner, for Elena. The floor plate limitation on a high-rise building, I believe, is 750 meters squared. And
I can answer that. Yeah.
Correct me if I'm wrong. Yeah.
According to our guidelines for tall buildings, yes, 750 is the limitation.
Yeah,
Okay.
so I'd like to chime in on that just to provide an additional clarification to what Iana has said. Those are the tall building guidelines that do speak to the 750 meter floor plate being a target that we're going after. There are a number of developments that have been approved throughout Hamilton that do exceed that in certain circumstances and with the special design considerations. It's our opinion that those special design considerations have been provided here in terms of the change of the different volumes that are put together. And I'd also note that we can call up the shadow study here at any point to show that the impacts on shadow in the surrounding area are negligible at best.
Okay, thank you for that. So the second part of the question is, could you clarify where you've proposed 850 meters squared for your floor plates. Can you clarify where that is? As the tower is set back, what are the floor plate areas at the various heights?
Sure, so I can clarify that one. So basically, we've got our podium. We have sort of the mid-rise form that goes from levels 9 to 14. And then we go to the tower, which is level 15 and up. The area for the towers would be 850 square meters. The area for the podium would be closer to 1,000 square meters. Okay. Sorry, the mid-rise portion.
Yes, yeah. Thank you, that's all my questions.
Eldon.
Thank you. I do have, I think one of my questions was answered. My other question relates to, I guess and sorry, you're going to hear a dog barking in the background, please ignore. It relates to your art display window. I appreciate the presentation and kind of discussion around it. Who manages that space?
So this would be owner operated. Ryan, I'm not sure if you want to add a little bit more, but yes, this would be like any sort of typical commercial retail space. It would just be a smaller segment or storefront. But Ryan, if you'd like to elaborate more, please feel free.
Yeah, I think, the thoughts are the owner here is quite an art lover. So we are looking at that space to figure out the options, but I think, the intention of it really was to help animate that through the various meetings we held with staff, where we went quite a far departure from the screened parking garage to now wrapping units and that piece. But I think, yeah, the idea would be for it to be available for display of art and other such things.
So just to build off that, Eldon, I think what could happen here is that could be a space that could be unitized through a future condo application. It could be managed by the condo corporation in the future. The possibility may even be there, based on the owner's wishes, that Emblem will continue to own those specific units in order to be able to provide any kind of display that would coordinate with any sort of art crawl, super crawl, these sorts of events that he's very interested in remaining a part of, if that is his desire going forward.
And a subsequent question to that, and I'm asking these questions because they're connected to animation, and
right.
You pitched this proposal as part of the animation. I'm not questioning, I understand the rationale behind it. I can see actually additional uses beyond just art that can happen within that space.
Certainly.
But it is a unique space, so I'm curious what you've arranged. Is that going to be secured as part of this approval?
So the programming of it will obviously change on an ongoing basis, and that's the hope of that. I think that the programming will be developed as we move forward through this, and will be something to have to transition onto the condo corporation if that is the ultimate desire as we work through it, Eldon.
Okay, thank you. Those are my questions.
Dana?
No questions. All my questions have been answered.
Ted?
Just to help us out, this concept of arts district, is that something that's been established, or is it direction within the city?
Is that a question to the city or to us?
Whoever's best to respond.
Fair enough. I guess from our perspective, we've spent a lot of time, and this particular owner spent a lot of time marketing the development directly across John Street as the design district. North James Street is typically home to a number of different galleries. It is why the art crawl started along James Street North. In local lore, this is part of what is considered an art district in Hamilton, but I don't think there's any formal designation aside from the fact that once a year, 250,000 people come down to Hamilton for an art crawl specifically.
All right. Okay. That's helpful context for me. Anyhow, thank you. The other question I had was, in terms of sustainability, are there goals that have been targeted on this project, or things that we perhaps JCI could talk about what some of the intentions are here?
I think at this point, we haven't finalized on any goals of sustainability. Of course, we live in a rapidly changing era of sustainability being really important. I think as the project further develops, this is something that will be continually discussed and developed with the client and consulting team.
Okay, thank you.
I think just one point to add on that, the one, as Sujin said, we just haven't gotten there on the details, but I think what you will see in the package is we have done quite an oversupply of bike parking.
Okay, thank you. That's all for me, David.
Jennifer Sison.
Thank you. I've got a couple of questions. Starting kind of with the outside. The dog run location, is that going to be accessible to just the residents, or is that intended to be accessible to the public as well?
It's intended to be accessible to the residents at this point. Should the client decide, I think there are some security issues that would need to be considered. So at this point, it's my understanding it would be just the residents as an amenity.
I think Ryan could chime in on that. I think we can say with some great assurance that it will not be available for the public specifically for those security and access reasons.
Yeah, I would confirm that in addition to maintenance and all that kind of stuff.
Okay, thank you. My next question was about the northern and eastern walls. You kind of touched on that in your presentation, that the city was concerned with blank facades, but I don't think maybe I caught exactly what the design intent is for those sides.
So the design intent is to carry through the same materiality at the same datums. So if we have brick for 3 stories, that does carry across. I touched briefly on the presentation regarding the east wall, that there is some additional articulation there. So it's not just a blank wall. I was not able to get to the north side, but the idea was that you carry the same datums across. So we do have a brick podium, and then there is a higher story of parking that's set back, and that would be a different material. And so you would see both of those material changes carried across.
Would it be of benefit if we were to have Sujin refer to those appendix that we included so you could get a visual on that?
Sure.
If you bring those up, that would be great.
Sure. All right, let me just
I guess my question by extension could be, is there intent to have any windows on those faces? I'm assuming no.
Yeah, sorry. It looks like on this appendix, I only have the south. So the south, you see the masonry, and then you've got the 4th and 5th floors. What you will see on the east wall is there is opportunity for some glazing in this recess, but due to the proximity of the building to the lot line, there would probably be no windows along the sides. And then on the north wall, you can see here, we have our brick podium, which is primarily parking. And then we set back at the 16-meter mark. And then this is additional parking structure. So we maintain those 2 datums. There is on that south, on this elevation, we've got sort of a canopy that brings the vehicular parking and loading. And we have a reveal there that also gets carried through to that east side. So there is some articulation on that east wall. We were definitely mindful of that in our design.
Yeah, and just to follow up on Sujin's point there, Jennifer, that eastern wall that you see against the rear property line from John Street, if you will, it's about a 3-story height. Sujin is showing it right there. The reason that is right there and located in that particular area and why it is tight to the property line is simply because we wanted to be able to accommodate units facing Wilson Street. So what that ended up doing is it shifted the way in which we can accommodate the ramp. Now, as you're aware, any sort of incline on the ramp is going to take a certain distance, and that ramp actually hits that wall at that very point and is the exact reason why we are able now to provide units facing Wilson Street, just in terms of how that parking structure ends up spacing out.
Okay, thank you. My last question was regarding the wind study. I noted that it had mentioned the development across the street on John Street, but I wasn't sure if it had taken into account any of the other proposed developments in the area. Can you clarify that for me?
Yeah, I can. So for our DRP submission, due to the deadlines and timelines, that was our consultant going off of the plans on a desktop. Since that time, we've actually completed the full wind tunnel test in the lab, and they've come back that it's meeting all intended uses. But to answer your question, he has factored in all of the developments surrounding, approved, and as in addition to the one we have across the street. So the study, which we'll give through SPA, shows wind conditions with no development as it is today, and also with the proposed approvals.
Excellent. That's all my questions. Thank you.
I don't really have any questions, but I will offer an opportunity to finish the landscape description that I cut you off in instead of my question.
Oh, thank you so much, David. I really do appreciate that. I will share my screen again, and I'll just conclude this presentation. Um, okay, and if you can just confirm that you can see that?
Yeah.
Okay, all right. So the proposed streetscape design aims to define the John Street North gateway into downtown. The design combines street trees and planting, unique feature paving patterns, and sculptural seating to create a visually interesting and pedestrian-forward design and providing an interface for interaction with the interior spaces. I'd like to highlight that in addition to the 3.05 meter road widening on Wilson and John and the 4.57 meter daylight triangle, you can see here the additional 3 meter ground floor setback to further improve the public realm experience. A rear view of this project shows the opportunities for outdoor amenity spaces on levels 6 and 8. The apex corner form gradually breaks down into smaller masses, transitioning towards the existing context and residential neighborhoods to the east and the north. In conclusion, the proposed development at 92 John Street conforms to the intent of the Downtown Hamilton Secondary Plan. The proposal provides the strong reinforcement of the corner, complemented by the development at 41 Wilson, to create a gateway into the downtown core. The massing and articulation of the various forms, from a strong podium expression to a conscientiously composed collection of tower forms, carefully balanced between the existing context and future planned developments. The development will improve the urbanization of the Hamilton core and provide animation to an otherwise banal segment of surface parking, creating a sense of place and identity. Thank you.
Okay, I'm going to turn it over to the panelists to provide their commentary. So the first one is Joey.
Thank you, David. Thank you, Sujin, for a very good and comprehensive presentation. It was a great package, very thorough and very clear in its presentation. Just going back to the heritage buildings, and this will be just maybe a comment for Nicholas with the Proctor building. It's a pretty good example of an early mid-century modern building. I do agree with the report that part of its charm is its standalone corner location, but also that its removal is important because in this condition it provides an improved corner condition with its connection to the public realm. So I understand why it has to go away, but I do think that as you continue to develop the document and salvage report, I would recommend that there is a commemoration piece that is connected to the material salvage, especially with the understanding that the Proctor building did serve and provided a resource for the new design. These types of projects are, and we've seen a number of these at this point, they're always very challenging. In comparison to others, overall, this is a very elegant scheme. What distinguishes it from some of the others we've seen is its considered design and the nuanced responses to the immediate context. In particular, the composition of the Eastern podium piece in responding to the datum set by the adjacent heritage buildings is done quite well. It's a little unfortunate that the street front transition is met with a transformer vault. But as the design of, and I understand why that's happening because you're staying above grade. But as the design evolves, there may be opportunity with the retail space. Right now, it's about 4,000 square feet, which aligns more with a larger, more corporate tenant. Potentially smaller units, a further distribution of this space. Smaller units could and would likely attract smaller local tenants that would prompt access points along the Eastern Street storefront and closer to the adjacent buildings to kind of create more activity along that face. Anyways, congratulations on a very good design. I do look forward to seeing it develop, and that's it for me.
Jennifer Mallard.
Thanks, David. And I agree with many of Joey's comments. I think we have a really elegant proposal here, and quality design approach is lovely to see. I do have a couple of comments. One of them relating to my question about the floor plate size earlier. When the panel met in our pre-meeting, we were talking about the 7 floors dedicated to parking, and I realize you're meeting the parking requirements. We were wondering if a relaxation in parking could be a trade-off to the floor plate size, so that this is a downtown core building. You're providing more bicycle parking than required. Those are great moves. But if the podium could be more animated with shifting some units so that you wouldn't be exceeding the floor plate size. I know that it's a big numbers game, but I think, you know, you said that the mid-rise is 1,000 square feet or 1,000 square meters. So I think we're pushing the boundaries here a little bit, and I think some shaping would be beneficial to make the tower a bit leaner.
Just as a point of clarification, Jennifer, if that's okay, I think that the 750 square meter floor plate applies only to the tower and not to the podium level under the guidelines.
Understood, but you're proposing an 850 floor plate for the tower. I'm just saying if we could shift some density by reducing the parking, that might be a good thing.
We always like reducing parking. Sorry for the confusion.
Yeah. Again, in the panel's pre-meeting, we were looking at the floor plans in a bit more detail, and I'll pick up one of the comments that we were talking about. I'm sure my colleagues will pick up some of the other comments, but access to public outdoor amenity. I don't mean public, I mean for the residents. So there are rooftop terraces accessible on upper levels, and I think one, we couldn't find a door to get out to the outdoor amenity on one of the levels, and the other one had access through down the hallway and through what might be a unit to an outdoor terrace. And I think it would seem more natural if the access to the outdoor terrace was right in front of the elevator lobbies, and you know, opening up to the outdoor resident space would seem a bit more gracious there. Also, I think that as the project develops, you need to look at the privacy of some of those units that are on the same level as those outdoor terraces. So dividing individual terrace space to common resident terrace space. One final comment on sustainability, and you noted that you're not there yet, but I think to get there, you have to start from at the beginning to consider things. Window to wall ratio, thermal bridging, all of those things are really important for making spaces livable, comfortable, but also sustainable. So I just put out there that the time is now to start, all of us to start thinking about those things. That's it for me. Back to you, David.
Eldon?
Thanks, David. And thank you for your presentation. I want to acknowledge the effort that's gone into the presentation, and it shows. And I think, you know, like, we appreciate that level of detail and the level of care that you provided. I agree with my colleagues on their previous comments. The only two pieces I'll add is just in terms of your landscaping and your program as you go forward. It would have been great to get a better idea of how you are treating and animating those rooftop components. It's a part of your narrative. It's a part of your plan. It seemed to be the part that was missing. There was great attention paid to kind of the ground floor relationship, but it seemed to be missing as it related to what happened internally. The other part is I really appreciated the thought behind the kind of the window display retail. I think more thought needs to go to that. I think in order for it to be successful, you're referring to a lot of municipal initiatives or public or community-based initiatives that you're tying into. For the life of something like that, there needs to be a tied relationship. And obviously that's something that can't be compelled by this committee, but it's something that if you really want that to be successful, you know, think about who you're connecting with in order for that to be a key, because I really think it could be a jewel part of your project. And I don't think it needs to be limited to art. It can be, it can be digital art. You know, it could be a rotating type of art in that form. A lot of those type of kind of linear retails are moving in that direction. So consider that as part of your application to help diversify what can happen within that space if you're intending to keep a narrow space like that. Those are my comments. Really, really enjoyed looking at the proposal. Thank you.
Dana?
Thank you. I also echo the comments of my colleagues. I thought that your project narrative and the evolution of your design was really a strong point of your presentation, a strong point of your package. And I really like to see the collaborative effort that you'd gone to with this project, working with city staff to bring it to a design level that was more mature and that was something that you could bring in front of us today. Just to touch on the showcase, I think it's a great idea in theory, and sometimes, you know, it can be difficult to execute in practice. I do think you guys have the commitment to it, and you seem to want to bring this to life, and I think that's great. I would consider building in the opportunity in the future, like in the design of the building, for this to potentially evolve into a retail space if that was so desired down the road. I like the street furniture that you've proposed outside of the showcase where people can sit and gather and look at what's in the showcase. I did note that your wind study suggested that that area would be adequate for walking. So maybe you looking at wind screening or how you can provide a comfortable pedestrian environment in front of that showcase. I know you have the canopy, which I really like. Along the other street frontage, the longer street frontage, I don't know if that's something that you could carry through to the shorter street frontage to provide a more comfortable wind environment, particularly as people may sit and enjoy some of the art in the showcase. And my other comment is around the bike storage in the interior floor plan. I don't know if that's really developed out, but consider it's a little bit of a maze to get from the bike storage to the elevator or the bike storage to the outside. Consider providing perhaps an exterior exit so people can take their bike and move towards the street, or maybe consolidating the waste so that you have a more direct route from the bike storage to the elevator. All these things, though, I see as details that you could work out through detailed design, and I appreciate the effort that you guys have put in with this project and with this package. Thank you.
Ted?
Thank you. So again, compliments the analysis and the resolution of this documentation has been really great, and it's really helpful to see how that process unfolded and to just have all that information and content. I'd also compliment the resolution, the design solution. You know, it's a bit between a rock and a hard place. You've got small scale residential on one side, but we see what the future is of this community. And so I think there was a lot of thought and effort into developing the design composition, the massing solution to achieve the goals that were being asked at this point in time for the project. So I think, you know, in response to the questions on this, I think the massing has been successful, and the efforts to address the neighbors in scale, texture, and massing has also been successful. I would reiterate some of Jennifer's comments with the idea of, is there a way to bring some more animation to John Street? And you know, as well as Jennifer's comments on the gallery, you know, could that potentially be could easily see how that ground floor could be reconfigured, maybe taking some of the retail from the east to increase the size of that retail. Maybe it is still a gallery window, but there's actually space for a retail unit or a gallery in behind there versus just a window. And I think that would ensure that it would be future-proofed and successful. I think more successful in the way it's been discussed as an art walk, in participating in that actively. And then the upper levels of that parking, is there a way to bring residential to John Street at those upper levels to help animate the streetscape? You know, this is one of the reviews where we're I think, at least from my perspective, we're trying to figure out, are there ways that we could make it even better? And I think, you know, thinking about the amenity space as the residents' public realm, would love to see as much thought and skill put into those outdoor amenity spaces and the interior amenity spaces, as we're seeing at the streetscape on Wilson, for instance. What's happening on those roofs? How does that amenity space make a great living and communal space for the residents of this building? And then finally, from a sustainable perspective, I think this project, you know, potentially from a marketing perspective, would being able to make a commitment to some sustainable endeavors, perhaps meeting the Toronto TGS standards, which I'm sure JCI is familiar with. Something like that I think would be great to see for a project of this stature and refinement. And I do think there's a business case for it. I think there's a climate crisis strong case for it, and I think we should all be doing our part to participate in that effort. Thank you very much.
Jennifer Sison.
So I agree with pretty much all of the previous comments from my colleagues, and most of my comments have already been made. So I'd like to add just a couple of things. I was really pleased to see the streetscape sections in the appendices. I think those did a really great job of communicating the design intent for the public realm. There are some really positive elements in the streetscape design overall. The zones you have for commercial furnishings, the sheltered bike parking, and the city street trees are all going to help allow active retail uses to kind of spill over into the street and help to animate it. I think the showcase is an interesting idea, and the integration with the art crawl is a really commendable goal. And while I don't necessarily want to see that go away, I would echo the others in recommending that you consider adding a bit more flexibility and variety through rearranging the interior ground floor space to allow for smaller, more flexible retail units, wrapping around more of that ground floor frontage. Overall, I really appreciate the time and effort you put into this design. It really shows in the details. I think you've been very thoughtful in how this development and the one across the street will really create a gateway and a landmark entrance to downtown, and I commend you for that. So thank you.
I hated it. No, just kidding. It's very positive review, as you've got from the rest of the group, and I agree. I think that the change in your final proposal to add the residential as a you know, a frontage on the parking at the upper levels is you know, particularly commendable. I also echo the comments about, in general, I feel like the ground floor resolution is not as far along maybe as some of the external development, and I can see there's opportunities for refinement. I mean, we're just looking at you know, a little bit of cranky access for the vehicles up onto that ramp. It's a little bit of a tight negotiation there, and I can't help but wonder about the two utility functions that you have on the amenity, you know, in areas that we would normally be looking for retail or public amenity, having the transformer vault on street level facing out on one corner, and the I guess it's the incoming water line or something like that, I think, that's on the other corner. I think that there's an opportunity for some ingenuity there that would, bring more street-related functions. Maybe that you could extend your gallery idea into the front of those areas in some way. And I also feel that a number of my colleagues have talked about the possibility of rearranging the retail, solving the bikes, that kind of stuff. If you, spend a little more time there, that maybe you can achieve a retail area where the present, your vitrines or gallery space is, and move those ideas to those other areas. I have to admit, I'm not as much a fan of the upper composition, but I can see that I may be the only one in my panel that's not as in love with the sort of pastiche character of the upper composition. And I would echo the idea that can you make the tower, meet the guideline of 750 through, I don't want to make it financially compromise your scheme in any way, but maybe through some juggling and pushing back if you don't feel you need the parking. One would hope that you might be able to make an argument in terms of distance to the LRT or something like that that would justify a reduction in parking if you, and obviously it would be reduced if you lopped off some units off the tower portion. Otherwise, I essentially echo my colleagues. It was an easy project to review based on the completeness and the consideration that went in the thinking that went into the project. So, I just think that there's refinement areas for improvement, but it's in general, very supportable scheme. So, I don't know if you have any questions for us, or we. See, I have 2 minutes. That's why I had to stop you there. Like we were right on the market here. So. Anyway, I don't know if there's any questions you have for us. Otherwise, look forward to the future development.
Okay. I don't think I have any specific questions. Is there anything that's popped to mind with you, Sujin?
No, I'm good. Thank you very much, everyone, for your considerate feedback, and we will definitely take that into consideration.
And what about you, Ryan? Are you satisfied with everything thus far?
I think the comments were great. The team did work very, very hard on this. I'm not just saying that because that's what we say, but they did. And so a lot of work went into it. And I think, the only comment I have, it sounds like there was a lot of praise for this, which is really great. It makes us really proud. But I just wanted to note that in addition to Franz's comments with respect to no shadows whatsoever on parks or anything, what this project is also achieving with the acquiring of 81 Wilson is substantial exceedances of setbacks to the tower in its current form. We've got, I think, 14 meters on one side and 13 plus on the other. So we think the design works, and we're really happy that you like it, and we appreciate it, and I'm sure we'll see you again sometime soon.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.
Bye, everyone.
See you later.
Thank you.